Generative AI, agentic AI, everyone's using these words, but no one has explained them simply for people that aren't technical. Think of them like this. Let's use the example of trying to hire someone. So imagine we use generative AI and agentic AI and we prompt it with the same thing. We ask it, find me someone technical enough to earn respect from engineers, but can also talk to marketing. Well, if you see, the approach for the generative AI is to give us a list of different candidates that it thinks it could be helpful. But what about the agentic AI approach? So it starts by searching LinkedIn, and from those candidates on LinkedIn, it starts to disqualify them by itself. So what does it do next? It looks like it starts to search YouTube conference talks to find panels of people that are relevant for the position that we're looking for. So it finds 10 speakers with technical credibility. After it finds those candidates on YouTube, it takes it to the next level and cross references their activity on X. It starts to look at what do they talk about? Who is in their network? It uses all of these things as signals of quality to find the best candidates. And ultimately, it lands on two. It looks like we have Priya Sharma and Kai Nakamura. That's the difference. If you think about that demonstration we just watched, I want you to break it down into two parts. Think of the generative AI as the encyclopedia, and think of the agentic AI as the intern. So, what do I mean by this? If you think about what an encyclopedia is, it's basically a way for you to be reactive. So you want to learn more about penguins. So the encyclopedia is reactive. You turn the book to penguins and then you get to learn more about them. So the process is you ask a question, it gives an answer, and then it stops there. But if you think about agentic AI as the intern, that entire process is completely different. The behavior of an intern is proactive. All you need to do is give it a goal and it'll figure out every way to accomplish that goal. And I think I just called an intern an it, but a person. And the process that the intern will follow is that you give it an objective, it figures out the steps, and then executes actions to accomplish that goal. So the bottom line is that generative AI helps you create, but then agentic AI helps you work. If we think about the practical example from the demonstration that we watched at the beginning of the video and start to dive into the details, this is what we can learn. If you think about it, for the generative AI approach or the Gen AI, you ask it a prompt. So find me someone technical enough to earn respect from engineers. And the old way or the old AI response would be for it to return you a bunch of candidates. And ultimately, you just have this huge data overload because it returns hundreds of people based on just the keywords that it used to search up people on LinkedIn. That is not an effective approach if you think about it. Because is that what an intern would have done? No, an intern would have taken so much more of a human approach, which is okay, am I going to just give my boss this list of 100 candidates and tell him, here you go? No, it's going to think about what are the most effective ways that I can filter through these candidates to give my boss a final list of people that I think that are actually relevant for the role that we're trying to hire. If we think about the steps an intern would take to accomplish this task, we can use the example that we're talking about. Let's say that they start by searching LinkedIn. I mean, that's a pretty reasonable first place to start because that's where I would begin. But after looking through LinkedIn, they realize there's way too many generic profiles here. I'm having trouble actually finding signal or characteristics of people that would actually be a good fit for the role. So after analyzing those profiles, it realizes, okay, these don't really reveal quality. So, how can I think about solving this from a more creative approach? Well, what about if I looked up conferences on YouTube directly related for the field that I'm trying to hire in, and then look at different speakers that spoke on panels in that conference? Wow, that starts to become so much more interesting because from that research on YouTube, it finds 50 promising candidates. But how can I take this even a step further? Well, I don't know how familiar y'all are with the tech industry, but Twitter in the tech industry is huge. So it realizes that actually I can take these 50 promising candidates that I found that spoke at these conferences on YouTube and cross reference them with their Twitter activity, see who they follow, who they're following, and analyze their network and use that to create a final list of candidates that I think could be promising for this role. And if you think about it, that is so insane because you're moving from someone or something that is just an order taker. And so you say, wash the dishes, and then it washes the dishes. You're moving from that to something that actually thinks and reasons by itself, and you don't need to give it clear directions or clear step by step instructions for how to accomplish the goal. It's like insane. The end result of setting that task for the intern results in 100 names filtered down to the perfect match. And not only is it able to find that perfect match, but it's even able to take an action and draft a personalized email about what it knows on that candidate from the research that it did. So on your end, all you have to do is verify the output and hit send. Now that we've walked through an actual example of the difference between Gen AI and Agentic AI, let's start to kind of think about the details of what's happening on the Agentic AI side. If you think about it, it's essentially a thinking loop. So the Agentic AI starts by seeing and perceiving. It looks at its environment. And then from there, it starts to break tasks into steps by, thinking and deciding what is the best approach to accomplish this goal. And from there, it executes a specific action. And as a result of that action, it asks itself the question, did it work? If not, let's try again in a different scenario or a different way. So if we think about taking this loop and applying it to the example that we talked about, the intern or the agentic AI started with LinkedIn and it realized, hey, you know what? The signal of quality on LinkedIn is not great for this role that I'm looking for. Then it goes through the loop again and starts to think about, how can I think about this differently? Well, actually, you know what? There are a lot of conferences on YouTube in this field for this position I'm trying to hire. So let me see if there's any signal or quality in the people speaking on the panels there. And it's like, wow, okay, wait, there is. So it executes an action, which is scrapes the names of the people speaking in those panels. And then it asks itself, okay, that worked, but how can I make it better? Well, what if I took that list of people that I got from YouTube and cross reference that with their activity on Twitter or X and see what they're talking about, who their network is? And from there, that is so much signal in a position or a candidate that I am confident that I can return a list of one or two people and it'll be good. If you think about the characteristics or qualities of an agentic AI that differentiates it from Gen AI so much, it can really be broken down into three things, which is autonomy, adaptability, and goal orientation. So if you think about autonomy, they operate without continuous human guidance. So they work while you sleep. Imagine having to babysit someone for every single little task that they did. It would drive you insane, or at least it would for me. For adaptability, here is what's so fascinating because they learn from their interactions. So if the first approach that they take towards something fails, then they try again, but in a different way. If you think about it, that's the way that we operate as human beings. There's so many different ways to do one thing that if method one fails, then of course we're going to try other different methods to try and get to that same goal. And the third is goal orientation. So here, this is so fascinating because it is so singularly focused on the goal that you gave it, and it doesn't let anything else distract it from trying to accomplish that goal. Honestly, I see why people are so crazy about agents or agentic AI because they're really going to become the best workers for us if we know how to use them properly. And for some context on how we got here and why the tech has gotten to the point where people are starting to make a craze about it. So, originally in around 2022, ChatGPT existed, believe it or not. But the way that chat worked was that it just had the ability to access massive amounts of information that it was trained on. So if you think about it, it was basically the same thing as an encyclopedia, but you could just talk to it. And then the second step was in 2024. This is where the process of reasoning started to get introduced with ChatGPT. So not only could it pull information, but it could actually have the ability to think and take time to process actual logic. But the game changing moment has been recently because of iteration. So now these agents have the ability to try, fail, and fix mistakes over a long period of time. So it's this persistence in the same way that a real intern would have or a human being that has created this insane innovation of being able to have AI agents or agentic AI work with you like real coworkers. Agentic AI is amazing, but it doesn't come without its own risks. But what's fundamental to understand about these risks are that they honestly would kind of be the same risks that you would have if you worked with an actual human intern. So, if you think about it, one of the challenges of using AI is that AI can hallucinate. So, agents can confidently think that they're talking about a topic in the correct way, but actually they could be completely off. Well, if you think about it, we have that same issue listening to someone on a podcast on YouTube or listening to a coworker to explain something that they think they understand, but they actually don't. The second challenge is what's called a rabbit hole. This is where an AI agent can lose context over a long period of time or for a project that it's been working on for an extended duration. For this, you just have to be careful that you are always managing context in the most effective and efficient way. The third challenge is accountability. So, if an AI agent makes a mistake, are you to blame or is the AI agent? Well, honestly, I'll give you my opinion, which is it's 100% on you. But the reason that this is a challenge is because people think that relying on AI gives them the option to escape responsibility for the output that that AI created. But if you think about it, at the end of the day, how can an AI take accountability? What are you going to do to it? Are you going to put it on a performance improvement plan? Are you going to dock its pay or not give it a raise? No. So at the end of the day, the only person that can take accountability is the person that actually used it. So, with this all being said, the human in the loop is fundamentally part of the process, and you're always going to need it. That concludes this video, and I hope now you understand the difference between Gen AI and Agentic AI, but more importantly, how that difference actually will affect you and the work that you do in the future. My name is Timothy. I work in advanced analytics and AI at a Fortune 500 company. And if you want, I have a free community down below in the description, and I would love to see you there. Thanks.